Our next contestant, while he's setting up, let me introduce John Kirkpatrick.
Eddie to the rescue.
Ah, okay. John is an oceanographer. His topic tonight is What's for Dinner? 2 mysteries. John.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be telling you about 2 mysteries. These 2 mysteries are related to some of the basic compounds that we find scattered throughout the cosmos, some of the things that Becky's already told you a little bit about. But these are very basic things you find everywhere we look, pretty much, and we still don't understand how life interacts with them. Now, one of these compounds is sulfate, and I'm going to represent sulfate to you as a peanut butter half sandwich. Okay? So this is sulfate, and it's found many, many places. For example, there's just oodles of it in Earth's oceans and other places like Europa. Another compound I'm going to talk about is methane, right? Also found in many, many places throughout the cosmos. Now, environmental chemists have known for a long time that you go to certain places on Earth, you look at sulfate, you look at methane, and you find in some places where you have microbes, when these 2 things come together, they get consumed. And so the chemist said, oh, hey, we've got microbes where these 2 things come together, they're combining them, they're making a tasty snack, and this material is being consumed. That's what the chemist said, and the biologist said, inconceivable. There is no single organism known to science which actually conducts this process. You don't have any proof of it. Well, who was correct? Turns out, of course, the answer is C, all of the above. There is no single organism that does this, but actually several microbes can cooperate and work together to make this sort of snack and consume this sulfate and this methane. So that's one mystery solved. Now, the plot thickens. And I'm going to tell you about sulfate. Remember, we still have some of our peanut butter half sandwich. I'm also going to tell you about now ammonium. Ammonium, again, something very basic compound which is found throughout the cosmos. Now, again, chemists recently have found sometimes when sulfate and ammonium comes together, they both disappear. They appear to be consumed. And again, the biologists say, inconceivable. This doesn't appear to make much sense, does it? Right? Ham in peanut butter sandwiches? No, not so much. And this is something which is under active investigation today, something we don't know the answer to. Is this a microbial process which is happening in the environment, or isn't it? The jury's out. What do you think?
Quick, ask him a question while he's got the peanut butter in his mouth. No, John, that was great. The question I have for you is less about the science and more about science communication. I mean, I think
Sure.
One of the reasons we're all here tonight is to figure out why science and how we communicate science to a wide audience. What's the toughest part about communicating a difficult concept like that to a large audience, to a lay audience?
It's definitely, whenever you meet somebody on the street, whenever you come and you talk to a large group of people, you have people coming from every different background. And sometimes it's very easy with someone who is like-minded, somebody with a similar education level, somebody else who grew up in Madison, Wisconsin, to connect and make a metaphor that makes sense to them, right? But when you don't know much about the person that you're talking to, sometimes your metaphors can miss completely, or can be misinterpreted even worse. And so that the meaning that you're trying to communicate, maybe a neutral scenario is it doesn't communicate, and the worst scenario is you try to explain something and it gets interpreted, that metaphor doesn't work, and they come away with an understanding which is completely different than what you wanted them to take away.
I know this is a difficult question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just to see
Sure.
what you have to say. If you were talking to a room full of 12 and 13-year-olds and someone asked you the question, what exactly is life, how would you answer it?
What exactly is life? I would, last time I was in a room of 12-year-olds, I told them that when he sat down and counted it, I was in the 22nd grade, and they kept laughing until class period was pretty much over. But I would say that life is something, no matter what it consumes, no matter what it produces, it's something that thrives and grows. And growth is something you can really relate to when you're young and you're measuring your own height against the wall and seeing yourself grow every year. You grow things in the garden. It's a basic understanding.
So when the biologists say, that's impossible, you can't have something that's using whatever, sulfate and methane, why are they so sure? Are they basing that on just because they don't know of any organism that behaves that way? Or is there some other principle that they're objecting to?
Right, there are two principles, right? There are two problems here. One is when you see something in the environment, when you measure something in the environment and you see something like these two chemicals coming together and being consumed, it isn't direct proof that there's something actually catalyzing, there's something actually running that reaction, right? There might be something else which is consuming the sulfate, for example, and something else doing the ammonium. So it's correlation, right, not causation. But then the second reason really also has a lot to do with the way things work in the environment isn't the way things work in the lab oftentimes. And the reactions that you see in the lab and the organisms that grow really well in the lab can be wildly different from what actually happens out there in the big wide world. Please.
So as the non-scientists here,
Sure.
the charisma gauge, I just wanted to commend you again with the use of props, because I just think that's a really effective way to, when did you sort of discover or decide that this was an effective way to engage your audience and get your point across?
Well, first of all, I think I probably shot my charisma in the foot when I ate a peanut butter and ham sandwich in front of everybody.
I wasn't going to say that, but yeah.
Actually, I taught English as a second language for 3 years. I worked in Japan, and I had no linguistic basis to communicate with. And I was working with kindergartners and middle schoolers and everything in between. And I found that gestures and pictures and basic jokes can communicate to anybody, no matter the language.
Thank you very much, John.